If you're a civil servant and somebody says, you've got some very interesting things to say, would you like me to slip me some information? I understand they were being asked, specifically stuff that's not in the public domain. Surely you would hope that that would set alarm bells ringing.
An investigation by The Times has found that a single Chinese spy is using the social networking site LinkedIn to lure thousands of British officials to hand over state secrets in exchange for large sums of money. It's believed the spy is the most prolific agent for a hostile state working against British interests in a generation. Well, Fiona Hamilton is The Times' chief reporter who got the story.
Western security services believe that this spy under the alias Robert Zhang and a handful of others that we've revealed today was contacting British and other Western officials from all sorts of sensitive sectors, defence, political, scientific and academic, to try and lure people over to spill secrets.
Well, that was Fiona Hamilton, The Times' chief reporter. Let's speak to Damian Green, the Conservative MP for Ashford, former Deputy Prime Minister, of course. Good afternoon, Damian.
Good afternoon.
What did you make reading this story? I mean, the brazenness is one of the things. It seems so striking, just literally contacting people and asking them to hand over what they know.
Yeah, it's shocking, but not surprising, in that we know that the Chinese state is determined both to try and weaken Western democracies militarily, but also to steal as much technological and industrial information as it can. So, congratulations to Fiona Hamilton for getting a very good story. But it's not that surprising that this sort of thing goes on. What of course in all these cases is surprising is if anyone falls for it. If you're a civil servant and somebody says, you've got some very interesting things to say, would you like me to slip me some information? I understand they were being asked, specifically stuff that's not in the public domain. Surely you would hope that that would set alarm bells ringing.
Is there a problem in terms of British social attitudes to China that actually, we were joking about this earlier on, the old sort of Nigerian prince email that people scam that used to people get, send us some money and you'll get millions of pounds and so on, that actually just British people don't have the same attitude. The alarm bells don't seem to ring when it comes to contact from China in perhaps the way they ought to.
That may be true. I think, 2 points really. One is the sort of people who the Chinese spies were approaching ought to be reasonably sophisticated and therefore should be anxious about, particularly if they were being asked to break the law, then that ought to be a no-no for anyone in those sorts of circumstances. But also, I think that people are susceptible to flattery, and I understand part of the modus operandi was to say to academics, you've written something interesting, can we talk about this, and maybe lead them on a path towards doing something that's straightforwardly improper.
The Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak, has characterised China as an epoch-defining systemic challenge. Is that robust enough for you? There's been a debate this week in the papers about whether or not the Foreign Office thinks that China should be described as a hostile state. Is the British government's attitude and language about China robust enough for you?
Well, I think that language that Prime Minister uses is quite good, and there is, but it's no secret, there's a permanent tension, if you like, at the top of and the centre of the British government about what our attitude to China should be. I'm, as it happens, relatively hawkish on this. I belong to the China Research Group, which was set up to try and alert us to the fact that actually China in many ways does behave like a hostile state, but one with which our economy is intimately linked, which is why it's a difficult decision to take. And therefore, we've got to be quite precise and fine-grained in our response to it. But therefore, I'm pleased, and particularly when we're talking about Chinese spying, about the fact that the security minister is now Tom Tugendhat, who was one of the people who set up the China Research Group. He is very alive to the active and difficult and hostile challenges that China makes to this country. And so I'm pleased he's security minister.